Good morning, NFC East. Happy Monday morning to all you. It is Super Bowl week, Eagles fans. Kerr Tone DeShields here. I'm heading off to Arizona tonight. Cannot wait. Tone DeShields cannot wait to cover this Super Bowl. Cannot wait to talk to a lot of Eagles and a lot of Chiefs. It's going to be a fun week down in Glendale, and I'm going to like it so much, I'm spending 9 days down there.
Wait, so this is your first time covering a Super Bowl, right?
This is the first Super Bowl I'm ever going to cover, yes.
Wow. Not ever the first Super Bowl you will cover. Come on, you got to speak into existence, Jeff. Not ever the first one that you have and will cover. There's more to come. More to come.
Oh, well, hopefully. You know, I'd love to do it every year if possible. But it's kind of hard when you don't have the broadcast partner every year. But I will say this, Tone. The best part about this is the Eagles are in it. So I have reasons to go down.
Yeah, that makes it that much more interesting for you, right? So, you know, I've been thinking about this all weekend. You know, the entire process that the players got to go through to prepare. So, I mean, you've been covering this game for quite a long time. What typically goes into a week of preparation prior to actually getting down to the Super Bowl location? Do you have any idea what goes into that?
So this is pretty much what I've gathered from teams I've talked to over the years, specifically the Chiefs. I know Andy Reid prepares his guys. I think Nick Sirianni did the same thing this week, where everything is game planned the week between, like that off week. Like they give the players a day or two off, but the coaches are already working on the game plan. They go through the game plan because they like to do this stuff at their own complex. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's kind of like a normal week. Then during the Super Bowl, they go over stuff. It's more perfecting the game plan that they came up with.
So, game planning, Eagles versus Chiefs. Even though the Eagles do outmatch the Chiefs in a lot of areas from a talent perspective per position, but there's one guy that I feel like is going to really be a problem for the Philadelphia Eagles just because I don't know if the linebackers are capable just because of their speed or their lack thereof of speed and their ability to cover. Travis Kelce is going to be a matchup nightmare for those linebackers. So, can you speak on, what, the advantage that the Eagles do have in that regard, even though they have Avonte Maddox and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and typically they alternate those guys or stagger those guys between the safety and the slot position. How do you think the Eagles will try to game plan for a guy like Travis Kelce, a guy who just understands zone concepts, a former quarterback in Cincinnati, a guy that's just a red zone nightmare?
This is how I always view the Travis Kelce situation. You can't get upset when the guy catches 7-8 passes a game. That's just what he does. He's going to get his catches. He's going to get his yards. He might go down as the best tight end in NFL history. What the Eagles need to do is, I think this is where Avonte Maddox being healthy significantly helps. You can move Chauncey Gardner-Johnson down, and he can cover him. And then you can use your boundary corners, your Darius Slays, your James Bradberries. You can use Max in the slot to handle Juju. And look, Patrick Mahomes is going to go to running backs and tight ends a lot in this game. It's not going to be just Travis Kelce. It's going to be guys like, Jody Forson and guys like that. You're going to see a lot of Jerick McKinnon. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy, I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to be back for the Super Bowl. I think they activated the practice window for him 2 weeks ago, but it doesn't look like he'll play. They're better off with Pacheco and McKinnon anyway. So I think what they're going to do is you're going to see a lot underneath stuff. The Chiefs run more plays to the running back and tight end than anybody else in the NFL. And they use them to kind of set up the wide receiver. If you watch the Eagles in the early 2000s, if you remember those Andy Reid teams, that's what it kind of feels like. Although the wide receivers are better than James Strash and Todd Pinkson. Just got to be honest here. So, I mean, the Chiefs they're very deep. They got playmakers across the board. And Mahomes is very cerebral now, gets rid of the ball quick. And he kind of had to be, right? He doesn't have to rely on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce anymore. So expect Kelce to be the focal point, but not the only point. This is where I'm kind of disagreeing with Chiefs fans on this week. Hassan Reddick versus Andrew Wiley is a huge mismatch. Wiley has given up 9 sacks and 42 pressures this entire season. Reddick, as we all know, has 19 and a half sacks. His pressure rate in these playoffs is over 50%. But yet Chiefs fans seem to think, oh, we'll be okay because we have Jerick McKinnon in the pass block. I'm like, okay, that's fun and everything, but you're kind of taking him out of the game because you got to deal with Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm actually curious about that, right? the Chiefs' offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, but I don't think they're as talented all across the board as the Philadelphia Eagles, right? You mentioned Andrew Wiley. He's a guy who's given up a handful of pressures, 9 sacks on the season. And then Hassan Reddick has just been on fire, playing with his hair on fire. And we saw what happens the last time you leave a tight end and or running back to block him. You get your quarterback hurt. So if they are going to try to dedicate an additional guy to block for the offensive line, an additional guy to protect Patrick Mahomes, right? What does that do to their offense? How much does that limit the Chiefs' offense if they're going to continue to dedicate an additional guy back to the block?
Well, I don't think it's going to affect them that much because they've been using 2 tight end sets a lot this year. They're not amongst the leaders in 12 personnel, but they're up there. So I don't think it's going to affect them too much, Tone. They're used to facing aggressive fronts, not an aggressive front like the Eagles, but this. Look, I'll just say this with the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a 76% pass block win rate, which is first in the NFL, but the Eagles have a 53% pass rush win rate, which is first in the NFL.
So which trumps which, Jeff?
Well, based on history, I got to go with the Eagles in this one, right? I mean, the Chiefs have faced some good pass rushes, but it's almost like, you know how everybody says, well, the Eagles haven't faced a quarterback like Mahomes? Well, I always counter with, well, the Chiefs' offense hasn't faced a pass rusher like the Eagles. That kind of evens out.
Yeah, I definitely would have to agree. Now, you think about that O-line, I have another question about the Chiefs' offensive line. Where are they leaky, right? I know you mentioned Andrew Wiley, but are there any other positions where guys can probably leak through or take advantage of? I know Creed Humphreys is one of the top guys. Orlando Brown, right? Orlando Brown's
he's a stud.
A really, really good left tackle. So where on this offensive line can the Philadelphia Eagles take advantage outside of just that right tackle position?
Well, I mean, really, it is the right tackle position. So Orlando Brown was a Pro Bowler. I know I know everybody questions the legitimacy of the Pro Bowl and the Pro Bowl selections after Tyler Huntley, but Orlando Brown's been the only tackle selected to the Pro Bowl in each of the last 4 years. So there's some merit to that. Joe Thuney is one of the best guards in the NFL. That left side of the Chiefs' offensive line is very good. So the Eagles are going to have their hands full there with Josh Sweat, Javon Hargrave, wherever they try to mismatch there. That's where the chess game comes in. Creed Humphrey is obviously really good. Trey Smith is really good. It's a good offensive line. But again, this brings back to, well, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback the Eagles have faced all year. I actually would say the Chiefs' offensive line is the best offensive line the Eagles have faced all year. Is it going to neutralize the pass rush? No, because there are some weaknesses in there, and the Eagles are going to get home. It's just, what can Mahomes do when he's pressured? Patrick Mahomes has been pressured in the Super Bowl 49% of the time. He's had his 2 highest pressure games in his 2 Super Bowls. I think he's a much better quarterback than he was when he faced the Buccaneers in that Super Bowl. He relied on athleticism and stuff, and the Chiefs have a better offensive line, but it is something to note that he has a 64 passer rating in 2 Super Bowls.
Is there anything to pull from that previous Super Bowl appearance from Patrick Mahomes? I understand he did lose offensive lineman in that game, so it kind of makes it hard to really gauge whether or not how bad did he really play, or was it the protection? Is there anything that the Philadelphia Eagles can actually pull from the way the Buccaneers handled the Kansas City Chiefs back then and use it in this matchup?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Eagles have the ultimate cheat code there because they actually have a player that was on that Buccaneers team, Ndamukong Suh, who wrecked the interior of that offensive line that pass. But remember, Creed Humphrey wasn't on the Chiefs yet. He was still with Oklahoma. Joe Thuney wasn't there. That's why they went out and signed Joe Thuney. That's why they went out and got those 2. Trey Smith wasn't drafted yet. Their left tackle in that game, I think it was Andrew Wiley. I think that's how desperate they were to play, because Eric Fisher getting hurt in the AFC Championship game that year changed everything for Kansas City. Literally everything. They had to play Nick Algary, who's still on that offensive line. That offensive line was just a complete mess, and I completely underestimated how crucial it was because Chiefs were a juggernaut all year. They just weren't losing games, and they just ran into a red hot Tampa Bay team, and the rest is history. So is there anything the Eagles can pull? I mean, Ndamukong Suh would be the one to ask that. As a matter of fact, Tone, you actually gave me a question to ask Mr. Suh this week.
See? Unless you got to take me with you, Jeff. I would love to go to Arizona. I would love to continue to feed you more and more questions and little tidbits.
If you don't mind sleeping on the floor of the Airbnb all week, you're more than welcome to go.
Hey, listen, man, all I need is a pillow and a blanket, and I'm good to go. But, I've been thinking, man, since we're in the trenches, right? Let's kind of flip it. The Eagles' offensive line against the Chiefs' defensive line. Now, I think the Eagles have a tremendous edge. Obviously, Chris Jones is a game wrecker, and he is that dude. We're never going to pretend like he's not. Chris Jones, arguably the best DT in the NFL. Some people say Aaron Donald. Some people like to throw Javon Hargrave in that conversation. Some people like to throw my man from the Titans. I always forget his name. I don't know why.
Jeffrey Simmons?
Jeffrey Simmons. I almost said Phillips. Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrence is a pro. So there, the league has its plethora of star D tackles, but Chris Jones is just on another level. His ability to get to the quarterback at the defensive tackle position is kind of uncanny. So how do you think this Eagles offensive line matches up against this Chiefs defensive line that's pretty top heavy?
Yeah, they are top heavy. I will say this. They're not as deep as the Eagles, but they got three guys that can get home. Frank Clark is one of the best postseason sack artists of all time. He's third all time in postseason sacks, and Chris Jones frees him. Now you got George Karlaftis coming to his own. Nick Bolton provides extra pressure from the linebacker spot. It's funny, though, how Chris Jones finally got his first postseason sack last week. Everybody seems shocked by that, but he's a guy that's double-teamed, and Chris Jones versus Jason Kelce is an underrated matchup, too, because Jason Kelce hasn't allowed sacks since 2021, since week 6 of the 2021 season. So that's going to be something I'm going to watch out for, how Chris Jones handles Jason Kelce, Isaac Seumalo, Landon Dickerson. Again, hope Landon Dickerson's going to play in the Super Bowl, the hyperextended left elbow. He'll be fine. But you got to wonder if that's going to affect his leverage as well when he's trying to, grab and pull and do all that stuff. So that's going to be difficult for me. I do want to mention this, though, Tone, with this game. It is important to know this, that the Chiefs aren't that great covering wide receivers, and the Eagles got two of them. And the Eagles are okay covering tight ends, but the Chiefs have a really good one. Sometimes I have this feeling we're in the makings for a high-scoring game here.
Interesting, because that's kind of the game the Chiefs want to play, a high-scoring game. That's really what they do. They put points up on the board, by way of Patrick Mahomes. So, I can't really argue with you there, right? You went there, you brought up the wide receivers that the Eagles have against a very young DB room with the Chiefs, right? So AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, they're going to be going up against Trent McDuffie and the rest of those guys. How do you see those matchups being exploited for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, it all depends on the one-on-one matchups, right? And again, this is back with my conversation with Tony Romo last week, how Jalen Hurts uses his legs to kind of set everything up, because the Chiefs got to worry about keeping him. Everybody worries about keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket. Problem is, Jalen Hurts has the highest pass rating in the pocket this year. So now what do you do? Well, okay, you want to get him outside the pocket. Well, then he's forced to run, which sets up the one-on-ones with A.J. Brown, with Devonta Smith. Honestly, Jalen Hurts is only 3 for 10 on passes, 25-plus yards this postseason. That has to improve. If he goes back to his regular season stats where he was 50%, Eagles are going to score some big touchdowns on Sunday, Tone.
So are you concerned then? I mean, we know he's obviously been dealing with the shoulder, and he's had 2 weeks to rest it. I think if it's going to get any better at any point, or if we're going to see Jalen Hurts get back to any kind of form, it's going to be this game because he had the additional rest. We saw him being able to throw the ball against the Giants. He didn't throw the ball a lot, but he wasn't afraid to take a couple shots down the field. I think, to me, and you tell me what you've been seeing, right? I feel like I've been seeing a guy who it has nothing to do with his skill or his talent. I think because of that shoulder injury, and maybe because of the medication they're giving him, maybe, I'm guessing at this point, this is all hypothetical or just a guess. Is it possible that maybe the numbing agent that they're giving him so he can deal with the pain, is it possible that can be affecting his touch?
It's hard to tell, right? I mean, really, the only chances he's had to throw in the playoffs, and like I said, he's only attempted 10 deep balls, but he really hasn't thrown those deep balls that much. I mean, outside the Devonta Smith catch in the NFC divisional game, he missed A.J. Brown in the NFC Championship game. But again, you're going to be in a dome now. It's possible. That is it's an interesting theory, right? That to think that maybe the cortisone shots or whatever they're giving him is affecting him. But I mean, that one's tough for me to answer. I got to be honest with you, because I feel like it's just more rest. The more rest he gets, the better off he'll be. And I think this bye week is going to, it's kind of like Mahomes' high ankle sprain, right? It's going to be better. It didn't seem to affect him in the AFC Championship game, but it is going to affect him. It just is. They're both dealing with nagging injuries that, look, if this is a regular season game, Patrick Mahomes probably wouldn't be playing. Let's be honest. Or they'd be giving him a week or two of rest. If this is a regular season game, I think Jalen Hurts could play on that shoulder, if you really want my honest opinion.
So let me ask you this then, right? Before we go to break. Jalen Hurts' shoulder, Patrick Mahomes' high ankle sprain. Which injury do you feel can have the biggest influence on this game from a negative perspective?
For negative perspective, Patrick Mahomes against the Eagles pass rush. I mean, because if he's running around and he tweaks it, it's really going to change the outcome of this game. I don't think it'll change the outcome of how Patrick Mahomes performs, but you land on that awkwardly or you take a run out of the pocket and you got to roll to your left, he's going to have some problems. I mean, I hate to see that for him. I don't want to see any of these two get injured because this is a great quarterback matchup as is. And I kind of want to see Patrick Mahomes have, not like I want him to have a good game here, but as someone who's talked to Patrick Mahomes a bit, I want to see him perform well. Like, he gets the narrative that he plays bad in Super Bowls. It just isn't true. He's just facing elite defenses and he hasn't had the offensive line to counter it. Now he finally does, but he's still facing the elite defense. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But I think based on, and maybe this is where I agree with Micah Parsons a bit on Jalen Hurts, based on what's around him, it does seem like Jalen Hurts is more primed for success in this game than Patrick Mahomes is.
Hey, and I like those odds, right? That's something that, hey, listen, if I can have a bunch of guys around me, if I can have a bunch of dogs around me that can get it done, why not have it, right? You know, that's a situation where you're blessed to have. So, yeah, let's go into our first break. I also want to leave you with this really quickly, Jeff, and I want you to think about this over the break, right? We talked about the high ankle sprain for Patrick Mahomes, and that may prove to be more lethal than the shoulder injury for Jalen Hurts. But I want you to think about this before we get out of here. And we're going to go into the break, and I want you to hit me back with the answer. Have you seen anything since that injury? What have you noticed, if anything? What have you seen from Patrick Mahomes that shows that ankle injury is somewhat limiting? Have you seen any chinks in the armor from him to indicate, I don't know if that ankle is right?
I don't want to interrupt you too much here, but
you're good.
Mike Gill needs a link to join us today, Tone DeShields.
Really? Oh,
yes.
Well, shoot. As a matter of fact, while I get that link to him, how about this? How about you answer me now then? Patrick Mahomes, that ankle. Have you seen any chinks in the armor that would give you a reason to say, okay, I'm a little concerned? Could it be change of direction? Could it be, you said it yourself, if he has to roll left? Is he limited in terms of change of direction? Is he limited in terms of planting that foot, so he can, have high velocity on those passes? Is there anything that you've seen in his game diminish because of that injury?
I didn't see it in the AFC Championship game. He was 6 for 6 when he was outside the pocket, when he was rolling outside the pocket. So where he was forced up there, where he was doing it himself, it was obviously good enough for Patrick Mahomes. That's the key. That's the key, Tone DeShields. But how often can you force him out? How much are you scrambling him? Those plays were design plays he was doing. I think that was more of a, look at me, I can do this. Now what, Cincinnati? He kind of confused an aggressive Cincinnati defense. What's going to happen, though, when you actually flush him? And I don't remember him going to his left too much in that game. I think that's the trick. I think that's what Jonathan Gannon has to do. Get Patrick Mahomes to his left and throw. And again, going to your left does affect the right ankle because obviously you're using that. You're putting pressure on that ankle. It's not him landing on it. It's what he can do with it in terms of creating plays, be immobile. Again, Patrick Mahomes isn't going to beat you with his legs on Sunday, at least running the football. But he's cerebral enough now where he can get rid of the ball quick and it's not going to be a factor. That's what's going to be key.
You guys are locked in on Good Morning NFC East. He's Jeff Kerr, and I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. It's Super Bowl week. Get excited, get lit, get electric. It's so much more to discuss, so much more to get into, man. We have, 6 days until the big game? So, man, again, you guys are locked in on Good Morning NFC East. We'll be right back after this, and Mike Gill is